Welcome to Authentic Living with Roxanne, a place where we have conscious conversations about things that really matter in our lives. And now, here's your host, Roxanne Derhaj.
Hi, everyone. Thanks again for tuning in. This week I have a colleague, Talisa Beasley. Sorry, did I say that wrong? Beasley, joining us today. Hi, Talisa. How are you?
Good morning or good afternoon. How are you?
Good. How's everything in Atlanta?
Warm. Thank God.
Warm? Is it warm?
Yes.
We're just getting snippets of it here in Niagara. And we've been getting lots of rain, which has not been good. So I'm going to read a little bit about Talisa's background, and then we're going to just jump right into things. So Talisa is a leading expert in helping women shift from weak to winning by helping them to leverage their talents so that they can increase their impact, influence, and income. Talisa's painful yet powerful journey has helped her to defy the odds by mastering her God-given talents that have catapulted her from being an unemployed teenage mom to a multiple business owner. It is with this passion and skill set that she helps women identify and incorporate the needed solution that needs results. She's an author, a women's leadership coach and speaker, a radio personality, and Talisa seeks to help others become the champions of their life, becoming unstuck, balanced, and empowered. Wow, that sounds amazing. So Talisa, thanks for joining us today. I didn't know a bit about your background, that you were, a teenage mom. Talisa and I are colleagues, colleagues, and we met about almost 6 to 8 months ago now. Tell me about what brought you to want to help women kind of find that inner pebble and strength within themselves.
Well, again, thank you for having me on your show today. I really admire what you do with resilience and helping people to recognize the importance of it. It was actually kindred spirits that we met because we actually both work with people doing therapy and also doing speaking and training. So it was very good to be able to be matched with you. But pretty much my own story, from being a teenage mom, I got pregnant in the last year of high school. And it was during what I call the babies having babies season, where there was teenage pregnancy at its height. So we were ridiculed and labeled and all sorts of things. And I was often told that my life was over and it was nothing I could do about it. And I would just be home with my mom for the rest of my life. And my son would be in and out of jail throughout his life. And that would be it. But I have very strong family background, specifically my mother, who literally hemmed me up in the corner and told me, you will not be, and you will go to school, and you will be great. And it was for that foundation that helped me to catapult into the life that I'm in now. She helped me get through school, helped, raising the child. Unfortunately, my son's father chose not to be part of his life. So I literally had to do it by myself with the help of my family. And they have been tremendous and helped me to recognize that you can really do anything. So the topic of resilience that you speak from is what I have lived.
So what were some of those core values that, your mom and your family instilled in you? Because how old are you at that point? Are you like 17, 18 years old?
18. I was 18 years old, extremely impressionable and, afraid of literally what could possibly happen. So some of the core values was, that we are resilient as women. We have that gene that runs through us that helps us to, take care of the children, be studying for finals, go to work, make sure the house is clean, get to bed and look good doing it. So
And
which
you
is
always, and you always look good.
and we always
You
look
always,
good. We look good doing it. So, just really taking that to the next level and really helping women to recognize it in all the people that I've come across, people I work with intimately, clients that I have. Um, that area is usually lacking. They don't feel as though they can, and they struggle with performance and moving forward. So I made it a goal of mine to help other people not to have to experience what I went through. Thank goodness teenage pregnancy has dropped tremendously since that time. But there are other challenges that come into play that tell us that we can't do it. So helping people to get to where they want to get to in life and be champions of life is a goal of mine.
so you had some messages that I were, obviously quite powerful, right? As a young woman, like you said, people kind of stereotypical, teenage pregnancy, child at 17 to 18 years old, kind of, how your life path was going to be defined. And of course, your mother had no part of that, thank God. And she kind of created that anchor that allowed you to find that space that ultimately was in you to be able to do that. When you work with women today, and I know, you work with women to help them find that inner uh, strength within themselves, but you work a lot also with women and diversity. So I want to talk more about that. So what are some of the core things that you find women come forward today to discuss with you when they're coaching or training or you're speaking on behalf of their organizations? What are some of the core things that they come forward with?
The number one thing that we focus on is identifying the talents that you have, the gifts that you have, so to speak, depending on who's speaking. But I notice a lot of people, specifically within our society, are focused on other people and what they're doing versus what you have to bring to the table. And that's actually a quote of mine, how to be able to bring your talents to the table. Because once you do, then you're able to utilize those to help and do the things that you are, doing within a job or within a business, however you want to do it. But again, our society unfortunately focuses on what other people have, and what I find is that we often are trying to mimic what other people have instead of looking at what it is that you had. I also suffered with that as well because I was trying to grasp at straws to figure out how to move forward. With a toddler, I'm an only child, so it wasn't like I could take this child to other people. I literally had to raise him by myself. And you didn't have a lot of places to go. So you're trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to do? And I often try to mimic other people. But I started recognizing that it was what I had. And people were telling me, you're gifted, you can do X, Y, and Z. So that's what I try to help women is identify their gifts, number one, and then how to be able to help them utilize them to catapult them into the area they want to be in.
Is that conversational where you actually try to kind of drill down with them in conversation about their strengths, or are you actually doing more of a formal assessment with them to really help them kind of, like their strengths indicators or those types of things? How do you approach it?
We actually do. We do a number of things. We do assessments. We also do an assessment of life, so to speak, because again, the different trials and tribulations you've gone through in your life produce those skill sets that you never thought you would need to utilize. So we actually do formal assessments, but we also find out, the areas that they have their strengths in, so that they can master that. Because again, working in an area that you're not comfortable in, you're probably not going to be really successful in it. But we do that, and we do examine, how they've been able to get through various challenges in life. And then we focus on how to be able to market that talent.
And it's interesting. I just recently did an assessment myself, and something I always knew, and my friends and my people close to me will say, "Oh yeah, we know that about you." I'm very good, big picture. Always have these big goals, and probably do too many things at once. But when it comes to the microscopic details, it always was something that I struggled with. I could get it done, Talisa, but even today, when I have to do that microscopic things, I really have to get myself into that mode. I can do it well, but it takes me taking special energy. So the worst thing I can do is to kind of leave it till the end of my day. Let's say I have a lot of things to do that are microscopic, and I think, oh, I'll leave it till like, end of day, 3:30ish. I don't get to it, right? Because at that point I'm tired, then I get frustrated, and then I'm like, oh, I'll get to it again tomorrow. So when I kind of looked at that assessment that I did, it's an assessment, it's called the Harrison assessment. What it really showed me was that you're good enough at this, you can be proficient, but it's not one of your strengths. But it doesn't mean that you can't increase that and learn about yourself in order to maximize the time. So I could imagine what the value is for the women that you work with that are able to kind of see that. With me, I know how valuable that's been.
Absolutely. And again, it's more or less becoming aware of it to know exactly what you have. And I love what you said, which is if that's not a strength of yours, we can work on that area and improve it. It doesn't mean that, I'm totally out. I tell this story all the time. In school, growing up, I had a horrible time with keeping my mouth closed. And my mother would say to me, she said to me, between 9 and 3, because that's when school was. It started at 9, it ended at 3. She said, between 9 and 3 belongs to me. Anything after that, you can run your mouth all day long, but between those times, they belong to me. So every report card I had said, she's a good student, but she can't seem to keep her mouth closed. And my mother said, well, when you find a job that will pay you to run your mouth, then you can do that. So of course now we've identified that, and I said to her, ta-da, we've done it. We found a job that allows me to run my mouth. She said, well, it's funny you remembered that. But I was ridiculed. I was talked about. She can't keep her mouth closed, things of that nature. So it tends to create a negative label for yourself, but it actually was a skill set, and I didn't know. So helping women to identify what they have is key, because once you're able to do that, then now they can operate from a point of strength versus operating from a place of lack.
It's so interesting that you say that. I got to tell you, you and I have so many parallels. So when I was small, they called me Chatterbox. That was my nickname. And I was always chattering, right? Like in talking. And I remember explicitly. So I was born in Trinidad. I went to a British school system, was very strict. And I was in standard 5. So I must have been about 12 years old. And because I'm a social butterfly, I remember I got the ruler. I got hit with the ruler for the first time in my life by a teacher that I loved profoundly because I was talking too much in class. And, what did that teach me? It was like, okay, keep your mouth quiet if you want to excel, and which is the opposite of what, when I look at my skills and the things that I'm supposed to be doing, which is speaking and coaching and training. It's, a little girl like me at 12 years old that may not have gotten the guidance would have learned to stay quiet and not be able to talk. And I remember, it gave me such a discomfort within myself to be able to continue doing what I did, because I thought talking was not right. But luckily, that didn't last too long. And it really kind of puts, a difficulty between myself and my teacher, who I loved, as because he had to follow the rules, which meant you're not fitting in. So he had to make an example of me in front of the class. So I wonder how many people can relate to what you're saying about your 9 to 3 and my, being told to be quiet by way of some of this punishment. So when you speak, and I know you work a lot with diversity and with women, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So many statistics show right now that women are the top group that are graduating from college. They're graduating in enormous amounts. But when it comes to getting back into the business world, we're not seeing that displayed as far as them getting to C-suite positions or executive positions. So they're moving to a certain point. They're actually what we would call bottlenecking. They're getting to a certain point and kind of stopping. Old way of saying it was you have the glass ceiling and trying to break the glass ceiling and get beyond it. So it's pretty much, it's a twofold thing. It's one, the environment or our atmosphere right now is kind of not recognizing that they are a high group amount of people who are graduating from college and have the skill sets that they need, mainly because they go by tradition. So we're going to do it the way we did it before. Men were in those positions. Women we know are working, but we're not necessarily recognizing them getting to the hierarchy positions. And the second part is, of course, women feeling that, not being accepted. So they're going after trying to be accepted, and they're going to a certain point. And now, 2019, some women are deciding, okay, I've had enough, and I'm just leaving the business world totally altogether and going to go start businesses. So again, it's twofold. It's the side of how we feel about it, being treated this way for so many years, and at the same time, creating an atmosphere that is accepting of it. So again, all of those fall in the area of diversity. I do work with women, but I also work with corporations on how to accept women into the fold. There are many statistics that stipulate, when you have more diversity in your leadership team, you have a higher profitability. So again, just helping them to actually do that. And speaking of that, recently, within the last year, the state of California, the governor actually, I'm not sure if it created a law, I'm not sure how he would implement the law, but stated that he wanted more women on board of directors, just in that state alone. So hopefully that will be copied by the other states and carried over. But for right now, California is actually leading that.
So what kind of things do we know about women in leadership, and why, in fact, they're better for those corporate or board positions than otherwise? In the past, like you said, it still is predominantly men. I know we're shifting also here in Canada. I interviewed one of my colleagues not too long ago, and they're working really, really hard to create diversity of women in boards, and it's coming along. So what kind of things, when you speak to corporations or C-suite executives that are looking at trying to kind of equalize or get more competitive in the workplace, what kind of things do you know that women bring to C-suite that you're able to share with us?
Again, it kind of comes back to our talents. Women have been leading for years, honestly. It is not something that's new. It's not a nuance. It's not any of that. It's just a matter of awareness and recognizing exactly what talents they have. I was joking a little earlier when I said, we can have the baby on our hip, be cooking dinner, cleaning the kitchen, studying, being good to the husband, doing all of that, calling mom on the phone, and handle it all before 8 p.m. So we've been doing it for years. The problem is not really recognizing how that translates into business. There are a few women that are in executive leadership. I believe she's now the ex-president of Pepsi Cola, I believe her now her name is Indra. But she just recently left. There are some other CEOs that are coming into play. But again, it's a slow process, and helping them to recognize the talents. The number one thing that comes to mind is insight. Women are exceptional at insight, being able to kind of read things that are not practical, looking behind the scenes. Most times, unfortunately, in our recent election in 2016, it came up again of the conversation of, we don't want her to get emotional and press the red button by accident, and what does that mean? So a lot of the negative things come out versus more of the positive, because traditionally, usually when men get ill, and I don't say all men, I just say some because I don't like to generalize, they usually break down, and they're leaning on the woman in the home at the time, to kind of keep it together. And then once they come back together, it's like, okay, now I'll just take it back on. But really paying attention to what it took to do that. How to be, as I've heard in the past, the backbone at the time. You need a strong backbone or you're going to fall apart. But again, it's not really translated really well into the business world. And that's my area of focus, of helping them to actually see the benefit. And really, the United States is behind the 8 ball with this. Other countries are actually leading in this area because they're recognizing that it's a higher profitability having, mixed gender leadership, so that you can get it from all sides and then make what I would call an educated decision.
For sure. And I think, like you said, that intuitive guts, right? that women have is something, and again, I'm not, like you, I'm not stereotyping, but that element, whether it's because of the roles we've played, or the practice, like you're talking about what happens before 8 o'clock, and I think of what happened in my house before 8 o'clock this morning. I'm thinking, was she seeing into my world this morning? And we're constantly juggling, so that concept of almost like what I call practice, drill, and rehearse. After a while, you're able to to do it, to care for so many things, and so many moving balls all at the same time, that I can imagine that intuitive gut, along with that capacity to do multiple things, that brings such a gift to senior leadership. I'm sure a lot of, I'm going to say, men and women listening, or HR managers, directors, or are listening, and they're wanting to maybe potentially think about what some things they could do right now, right? Whether they're women listening and thinking, I want to be able to kind of continue to climb, but I've been kind of diverted, or the things I've tried haven't worked. What kind of things might they start to consider if they're wanting to kind of move up the ranks in leadership in their organization?
Well, one is, the first thing is to consider that there's another perspective to look at. A lot of times when you're feeling a certain way, that tends to monopolize your life. If I don't feel well, I usually don't act well. So you hear people say, I'm tired, and you can see it in how they respond to things. But accepting the idea that there is another way to look at this is probably the first thing that I would say. A lot of people who have done work with me have said, well, I didn't look at it that way, and I realize I do have what it is that I need to do. And to kind of go back to what you were just mentioning a second ago, if you take all of that insight, all of those things, and then add them to the degrees that they are now obtaining, again, that's just going to be massive to be able to take that forward and say, okay, now we can apply it here, there, and everywhere. So the number one thing is, first of all, recognizing there's a new way to look at it. Second is maybe, adopting the idea that we would need a coach, somebody to actually help me pick out those areas and work through those areas, so that I can be the best that I want to be. The third thing is, in the area of talent management, I know for HR directors or people in HR, they're looking for the talent. Sometimes we really need to look at how a posting is listed for a job that they're actually listing. Certain words kind of get people's attention. We need someone who's exemplary in this, and a woman may think, well, I'm not exemplary, I'm okay, so I'm not going to apply for that. Men and women apply for jobs totally different. Women look for, I want to get 90% of what they're asking, and then I'll apply. Men look at it totally different. Men will have 50% of it and still apply. And the concept is, if I can just get in front of the person, I can convince them that I'm a good fit for this job. So again, it's how we see it. We're looking at it totally different. And also for people who are working within corporations, look at the areas of need. If I need someone to kind of help with this, a particular client may have X, Y, and Z, and you don't have any executives that do that. We need someone to kind of mix it up a little bit and help us to see it from a different perspective. So all of those things are kind of areas that you could start, recognize that maybe I do list things the wrong way. I want somebody who's excellent in blah, blah, blah. We all know that those job postings are wish lists. They really are. They're just wish lists. So if I can get that, that would be great. But if I can get close, I'd be good with that too. But that's not exactly, said throughout the posting, and it puts people off about even applying for it.
And guidance, right? Because I think of when I got my first corporate consulting job, and I looked at the description, it blew me away. I was like, whoa, and then I thought, okay, so how am I going to get there? And I worked with a coach. So luckily I was able to have somebody look, and it's that objective frame, right? When you have someone else look at what you've done and then pick out those transferable skills, or the positioning of how you write it, into, the letter or the resume, those types of things really made a difference. And that's, I'm going back, probably back in 1997. And that helped me, propelled me into the corporate sector, where I was able to enter into a bigger arena and gain the skills that I needed to kind of get where I wanted to get. But had I not gotten the right guidance, because there was nobody in my realm around me that was wanting the same things, I didn't have a colleague or a friend or somebody, say, that was ahead of me that could mentor me, which I often look for those people. And if I can't, then what I've ended up doing is going to coaching. So you're so right. And then we're so subjective sometimes when we look at ourselves. We don't see, all those pebbles in the rough that somebody else, like a coach or a mentor, can kind of pull out from us.
Absolutely. And also considering, okay, what's the goal? The other thing that needs to be considered is, what's the plan here? Where am I trying to go? Back at 18, when I didn't know any better, the goal was to finish school. What most people don't know about me is it took my son's entire life to finish my undergrad. So he was 17, I was graduating college, and just happy to get there. We actually would have graduated the same year, but I slowed it down because I didn't want to steal his thunder. So I wanted him to graduate and have his time, and then I graduated after him. So it took time, but the plan had to be mapped out. This is the goal, and then after you meet that goal, then let's get to the next one. And without a plan, you're not going to be able to do much of anything. So, part of what I do with women is helping them to map out what the plan is. Same thing with companies. What are we trying to do in year X? How do we want to get there? What's it going to take to do? So planning is very, very important to the process.
And I think of the strength it must have taken to raise a child and to go to university. Wow. Complete sheer strength, because I think of, when I've obviously gone to school quite young and those types of things. And when I went back to grad school, I was in school with a lot of parents, and I could see the struggle. How much they had to juggle. And I didn't have the response, and I was still under stress. So I could just imagine what it must have taken. Or when you talk to other women that are there that thinks, well, I have to shut that door because now, I have children, or those types of things. To be able to bring your frame must be quite powerful.
But again, even to the point of what you speak on, which I love, is resiliency. Women have always been resilient for years. But we just never really focused on what it took to actually get where we have gotten to. So to really bring the focus back to, okay, it took this, it took that, I never claim all the credit by myself, because it was my foundation of my family that actually helped me to get there. They modeled the behavior for me. This is what you do, and this is what it's going to take. And I give my mom credit in that area, because she didn't finish school. And when she started school, I was 11 years old. The nighttime soap operas, and I'm aging myself a little bit, Dallas, Dynasty, Falcon Crest, all of that was on. And the very first one, I believe, was Flamingo Road. Yes. And it came on at 9 p.m. She would not get home till 9:30. It was my responsibility to tell her what happened the first 30 minutes, and then she'd catch up on the next 30 minutes. But to see her, she graduated at 62.
Wow.
And to see her go through the whole process. When she graduated, I had already had my undergrad. And I said, how does it feel to be on the stage? And she said, it feels really different, because I'm used to celebrating your stuff. But again, to see her do that from the age of 11 for me, and to make it at 62 and graduate, again, just was modeled for me. So as you mentioned earlier, mentors, coaches, people you needed. I didn't do this alone, but people helped point out, okay, you can do this well. Let's try to incorporate this. And that's exactly what I help women to do.
So how should women, or anyone for that matter, thinking, I don't know how to go about choosing a mentor or coach? What kind of things do you think that they should be thinking about before they approach someone, or even, if they are able to hire someone? What kind of things should they be looking for?
Well, you definitely want to look for what the person is doing. If it is exactly what you want to do, then that's a good sign that we're headed in the right direction. But a big piece that people miss is make sure that it's a good match between you and the individual. Rapport is everything. So if you're talking with someone who does not relate, doesn't understand any of what you've gone through, but you admire what they're doing, it's probably not a good match. So you want to find somebody who's a good match for you. You also want to find someone who is a good spokesman for you. Someone will speak of you when you're not in the room. That actually helps to sell you to the people that they're actually with, so that they know, oh, let me keep an eye out for, such and such, who's coming up, and a person that will be honest with you 100% about what's going on, because sometimes we have to have the hard conversations to say, okay, you really need to fix this area, or you need to consider X, Y, and Z. And when you put those things together, you actually will probably have a good mentor.
And another thing that I've always done, Talisa, is I pick up the phone, right? Like if I see somebody and there was someone, and I'm going to forget her name, and this was about 2 years ago, she was like, she at the time, I believe, was the head of NSA. I thought, I'm going to pick up the phone. And the National Speakers Association, people that don't know who that is. And I picked up the phone, and she picked up the phone at the same time. I thought I was going to, and I'm going to forget her name. And I said, and I thought I was going to get her voicemail. And I left this message, I was about to leave my message voice. And then she goes, hello. And I went, hello. And she spent half an hour on that telephone with me, giving me advice about what it would take to get into the speaking world. And, what I did is I just basically listened to everything she said, and I did everything she said to do. And I was so grateful. And that's the one thing that I would share from my experiences. Don't be afraid. If there's something or someone that's doing what you want to do, and most of these people are gracious, like this individual that spent half an hour. She didn't know me. I'm going to remember her name later. And at some point when I go to that convention, I'm going to go up and tell her how she made a difference in my life, because she spent a half an hour. So don't ever be shy about picking up the phone. I would tell you, and I'm sure Talisa probably has the same experience, most people have an abundant mindset where they think, I can help you because I've been there. And I've been remiss to say that anybody that I've reached out to has never given me the time. I don't know if you would agree with that, Talisa.
I would totally agree. Don't be afraid of anything. Everybody breathes like you do. They put on pants like you do. Pick up the phone and call. The worst case scenario, you'll get voicemail, like you were preparing for voicemail. So you already knew, I'm going to get voicemail, But the courage it took to pick up the phone, and to some women, they feel like, well, you guys have all that courage. I don't. I wouldn't believe that to be true. You have courage. I don't care if it's a lot or a little bit. It can be built upon. But the goal is, this is what I want to do. What are the next steps it's going to take to do? And if she said she couldn't talk to you, okay, well, at least I called. She's got your name now. She'll call you, and it kind of goes from there. But it's really just taking the first steps to say that I can actually do this. And now let's start identifying what the steps are to move forward.
And if someone doesn't call you back, don't let that stop you. Call someone else that's also doing it. And I find that most people will give you the time. They'll tell you, I've only got 10 minutes or whatever, and which is respectful, but you can gain a lot in a 10-minute call. So Talisa, what I'm wondering is, one last thing before we wrap up is, when is it that women or people thinking about kind of making a shift within their corporation, when is it that they should maybe be thinking about, look, the environment I'm in may not be able to afford what I'm trying to gain? When is it that people should kind of start to look at that?
I would always say, first of all, you mentioned earlier, Roxanne, about, seeing the big picture. So if we see the big picture, then we know, okay, this is where I want to go. The next thing behind that is looking at my environment. How is that going to be accepted? Because again, we were just talking about the fact that women are graduating college at high levels, but they're not moving there. But there are other parts of the world that are. And sometimes educating people and introducing different things to them also helps them to broaden their perspective on it. So don't think that because they're not in the same place you're in doesn't mean that it's a total no. It may mean I have to go around a different way. My analogy I'll use for that is, my son was born at almost 12 pounds. And yes, he was 11 pounds, 9.5 ounces. So yeah, we kind of did the thing, just did it all up. So of course he grew to be, his nickname when he was small was Baby Shaq, because he towered over people. and it was just amazing. But right now we're in the midst of the NBA Finals, and Toronto's in it, so you guys are excited up there. But again, it's how people got to where they are. So for him, we were looking at, the typical way normally is high school, college, and then get selected for the NBA. But now in 2019, there are so many different ways. You can high school, college, you can come out of college early, go into the NBA. You can play ball overseas. You can get redshirted and walk onto the team. There's so many different ways. But if you think this is the only way, that's what stops you. So sometimes it's a matter of educating people. For someone to just walk on to an NBA tryout, you're thinking it's 1 in a million. But you could be that one that actually gets selected. But once they find out what skill sets, and this is where I'm coming back to the skill sets that you have, and they recognize this is what I want, then that opens the door and off we go. And you could be the first. You could be the Rosa Parks of something. Who knows? But we want to take that step forward. And if we have to educate people, we'll educate them. But if you have marketable skills and things they want, it's not a question whether they'll take you or not.
I like that because, education today's, the perception of it is shifting, where they're gone out of the traditional steps. Now you could propel forward. And like you said, you could be doing things that people have never done before. Well, Talisa, this has been a pleasure. I know that, that concept of looking at skills and having conversations is the biggest part that I think I've gained today. What I'd like you to do is to tell people where they can get a hold of you if they'd, like to hire you for coaching or looking at having you come out to speak or train any of their people in their organization.
Well, you can always go to my website, which is talisabeasley.com. And let me spell it because sometimes people mess up a little bit. It's TALISA, B as in baby, EASLEY.com. You can email me on there. I'm on social media. You can go on In the Beginning Consulting and find me on Facebook and Twitter. Definitely reach out to me and we will see how to connect and start you moving forward.
Awesome. So for everyone, words that I've taken away today is there is no door that you can't open. And if that one doesn't open, move on to another one. Stay focused on that you are unique and you have the skills. Sometimes maybe you may not be able to do it or see it in yourself, but find someone else that if your judgment might be a little bit cloudy, get a mentor or a coach to help you out. So if you're needing more information on me, you can reach me at roxannedurhodge.com. I do keynotes, training, and coaching. So take care. Thanks a lot again, Talisa, and we'll chat with you soon.
Thanks for tuning in to Authentic Living with Roxanne, creating the space for positive, healthy change. Roxanne is a keynote speaker, psychotherapist, and coach. To work with Roxanne, visit roxannedurhodge.com/blueprint. We'll see you next time on Authentic Living with Roxanne.